Before we get into the Second Amendment, we need to start with some background on the Constitution itself. The very existence of this debate is devastating proof that the American culture has been lost and destroyed. The design of a government does not exist in isolation. The culture of the society is an integral part of that design. One of the chief checks and balances built into the United States Constitution was the American citizen himself, and the culture which held them together. Without the zealous Gadsden spirit, which continuously demands the respect of his natural rights, it is only a matter of time before the greed and crown lust of lesser men dissolves the mountain of liberty into crushed and barren sand. It is for this reason that the Second Amendment was enshrined in the Bill of Rights, to leverage the people's jealous claim to liberty as a tool to keep the government in check, and ensure that they possess the power to enforce that claim, no matter how corrupt the government becomes. But I'm sure many people already know at least some portion of that argument, and simply don't believe it. So, in this series, I'm going to show you, in the founder's own words, as well as others, that this intention is indeed true. Furthermore, the degradation of the Second Amendment is not the only, nor even the first, aspect of the Constitution which has been eroded. The original design of the Constitution was substantially different from what we have today, in several key ways. They may not seem like much, but once you understand the underlying intent behind the design of the Constitution, you will begin to understand how all of these seemingly small changes can have a profound effect towards undermining the safety mechanisms within it, and end up resulting in the high degrees of corruption and overreach which have been cemented into the modern government. However, before we get into that, let's first start by establishing a baseline understanding of what our government is, in precise terms. Not a democracy. My assertion that American culture has been lost and subverted is most clearly evident in the popular claim that the United States political system is a democracy. This is absolutely not the case. In the simplest terms of a single word, the United States is a republic, as explicitly stated by Benjamin Franklin when asked by Elizabeth Powell, wife to Samuel Powell, mayor of Philadelphia, what form of government the Constitutional Convention had given us. Franklin replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." But, in precise terms, it is a democratically elected representative republic. This is profoundly different from a true democracy, especially because both the Founding Fathers and philosophers for thousands of years have argued that a true democracy was both a dangerous and unstable form of government. In a true democracy, the will of the people at any given moment, determined by popular vote, is king. Period. In a true democracy, there is nothing to restrain either the rash passion nor the immoral inclinations of the mob. If the people vote to do something, then it is done, no matter what it is, no matter why they want to do it, no matter what the consequences are. If the popular vote passes, then they do it. The classic example of this is the execution of the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates in Athens in 399 BCE. Socrates was condemned for impiety and corrupting the youth, due to his teaching of philosophy and questioning of established orders. Because of this, the Athenian court voted to execute him, and so he was forced to drink poison. In a true democracy, the highest authority is the will of the people at any given moment. Therefore, there are no rules of higher authority which can restrain nor prevent the outcome. Such regulating boundaries are the defining characteristic of a republic. In a republic, the law is king. The will of the people may still be honored, but only so long as it doesn't violate the law. It is these laws which set the boundaries of permissible actions and consequences. The question then becomes, who makes the laws? The simple answer is, whoever has that power in the society. In its generic form, a republic is any form of government which is dominated by the rule of law, but how that actually manifests entirely depends upon the specifics of how the society is designed. The lawmaker could be a king, or a council of elders, or a house of lords, or an assembly of chieftains, or even some specified portion of the general population. For example, those over a certain age, or of a certain lineage, or who own a sufficient amount of land, or who have performed military service, etc. Whatever the society decides, this person or group wields the power to craft laws within the society. If they do so themselves, then the form of government is said to be direct. However, if they are represented by intermediaries who act on their behalf, then it is said to be representative. But then the question becomes, how do you choose the representatives? Again, this entirely depends upon how the government is designed. The appointed representatives could be the eldest members, or the most powerful members, or the wealthiest members, or randomly selected members, or they could be appointed by a higher power, or there could be some mechanism by which the representatives are elected. But then you have to ask, how are they elected, etc. The U.S. system. So, if we put all of this together with respect to the United States, then we get the following. The highest governmental authority in the United States is the Constitution, which explicitly outlines the foundational rules and structure of the government, thus making the United States a republic ruled by law. This law then specifies that the acting authority for this government remains in the hands of the people, and that a small number of people shall be appointed into the government to act on behalf of the people in order to craft and enforce these laws, thus making the government a representative republic. It then specifies that these representatives will be elected via popular vote, thus making them democratically elected representatives, and thus, as mentioned earlier, making the U.S. government as a whole a democratically elected representative republic. You may object by perhaps quoting the consent of the governed and claim that in the United States, the people are the highest authority. However, I would disagree, not because the intention is wrong, but rather because the framing of the specifics is. First of all, I did not claim that the Constitution was merely the highest authority. I claimed that it was the highest government authority. That is to say, within the bounds of the construct that is the government, the highest and most powerful aspect is the Constitution. The government is that fabricated institution which the Declaration of Independence mentions as being created by men as a tool for the purpose of furthering our ends. The people are not part of the government. The people predate and exist outside of the fabricated construct that is the government. The people are the highest natural authority in relation to the government. It is man's natural right to create and alter his systems of government, because governments are a creation of man. It is specifically this distinction between natural right and fabricated system, which establishes the supremacy of the people over and above the Constitution. However, in order to manifest the system outlined in the Constitution, we sacrifice a small portion of our natural autonomy by subjecting ourselves to its authority. But ultimately, this subjugation is functional rather than natural or deterministic. That is to say, we remain subject to its authority because we choose to be, because it is useful, not because we were born slaves who have no choice. As always, for this article's sources, more articles, or to get a copy of the book, visit weepingdragon.com.